call me a god. They call me a god. They call me a god. They call me a god.
Let's go! I'm about to go off like a weapon. Fuel to the top, gotta feel the tension. In my thoughts.
Welcome back, everybody. Hit that like, hit that subscribe, comment down below. Let me know what you think about this video. And if you want some exclusive perks, join that membership by hitting the join button right next to the subscribe. But today we are going to be going over again, same thing I've been doing for the past couple days, a little bit of anticipation before training camp. We are going to be going over the linebackers for this episode, and just want to quickly go over the Dalvin Cook situation because I think, if you watch Dougley, he's covered it pretty well. I don't really feel like discussing it, so we'll just go over it real quick. He's got allegations of domestic abuse. We'll see what happens because there's two different stories to each one of the things, and see what happens. But that might be a little bit of a fork in the road for good old Dalvin Cook coming to Miami Dolphins. So maybe we're sticking with the running back room as it is. But we'll just start out with the list. So we're going to have Mitchell Agood from the University of Miami, which, all about the U, baby. Jerome Baker, Bradley Chubb, Cameron Good, David Long Jr., Aubrey Miller II, Garrett Nelson, Jaelen Phillips, Malik Reed, Duke Riley, Channing Tindall, and Andrew Van Ginkel. I did not realize, actually, before this video, I did not realize how many linebackers that we have right now on this team. Obviously, some of them are going to get cut, and we're going to go over those right now, but I didn't realize how many linebackers that we actually had on this team. So, we will get right into it. We're going to start off with the practice squad / cut players, and I'm going to start off with, I believe, practice squad wise, we'll start with Mitchell Agood. And the reason I think Mitchell Agood is like that is because he's basically a pure type of pass rusher. And I think he's one of those guys that needs a little bit of time to develop into his own. He played for the University of Miami. He was an undrafted free agent that we got. It seems like Miami's getting a lot of undrafted free agents, to be on the team right now, which is granted, before training camp, you get as many of those players as you want. I've heard some things about him. He does pretty good, but I think he's going to be one of those developmental players that we keep on the team for maybe a couple years on the practice squad, allow him to develop, and then, possibly eventually he makes the 53-man. Maybe not. It could be closer to one of the cuts, but I think he might be a practice squad player that we keep on the team. Cameron Good, which was our last year's 7th-round pick, and haven't really heard too much of him, which is probably not a good thing. He signed a reserve future, so he might be one of those that we keep on the practice squad. But yeah, he's just one of those, another developmental player. I haven't really heard anything about him during the OTAs and all these different camps that we had. So yeah, not really too much news from him, kind of just a developmental guy. Still needs to learn, the ins and outs, and we'll see what happens. He could be a cut as well, but it looks like he re-signed to a reserve future contract, so it looks like he's going to be on the practice squad coming into this year. Yeah, I don't think he'll make the 53. I think he's not going to get cut, but he'll be on the practice squad. Cut that I think is going to happen is Garrett Nelson. Haven't really heard too much about him. Just thinking is one of those guys that we picked up, see if he was any good, but I haven't really heard a lot about Garrett Nelson. He is from Nebraska. He finished his career with 32 consecutive starts, so he doesn't really get injured too much. He led the team in sacks and tackles for a loss. But again, another developmental player that I don't know. I think right now we're going to keep Agood and Cameron Good. It could either switch out Garrett Nelson or Agood coming into this. But I'm not sure. We'll see. I think the next one is kind of a tricky one. I don't know if we cut him or not. He might be another practice squad player, but it's going to be Channing Tindall. And the reason I say that is because he seems to just have a struggle picking up this playbook. And the problem with that is all the other guys, Cameron Good, we'll see what happens. He might, not be on the practice squad. I'm not sure, but Channing Tindall was a 3rd-round pick. So the problem with him is that he's just not picking up the playbook at all, which is a big problem because he plays the middle linebacker position. And the reason that's a problem is because you are the quarterback essentially of the defense. So having a middle linebacker that can't pick up the plays on the playbook, it's going to be tough for him to move on to the second stage of diagnosing offensive plays, or being able to switch coverages mid-game, which you can't. You gotta have something like that. Especially we'll go into later on, but people get injured, and you got to be able to come in and know what you're doing. So with him, I don't know. He could be a tricky one where honestly he might be a cut, depending on what he's doing. I think obviously he was the first pick last year, but he's just not really. The problem is the smarts. He's what we're being told is that he is just not really. Which it's hard to knock a person like this and say that they're just, not intelligent, because I don't think that's the case. I just think, I don't know, we'll see what the outside factors are. Is he, doing too much recreational things and not really focusing on the actual playbook? Because, you're a rookie, you get a quick little contract, but, they're young. They don't really know what they're doing. We'll see what happens. I think he would be good to be on the practice squad, give a little bit of maturity to him, because I think that's out of every player. I don't think I've heard anything else except for him about understanding the playbook. Izukanma had that last year, but you're a rookie, so it's different. And coming in this year, this is your second year, and you're still struggling to pick up, which obviously is Vic Fangio, so that might have been an issue as well. But you still gotta do a little something. So he might be a practice squad player, a third-round pick, even though a lot of people don't want. I mean, you got to figure like Devon Atrain's a third-round pick. You want to be a little bit of something, at least a backup in the league. So we'll see what happens with him. But I think he might be another practice squad player that, is iffy because he's not picking up the actual plays. Now we'll go to backups. And we are going to talk about my favorite undrafted free agent that we have on this team, and it's Aubrey Miller. And Aubrey Miller, he was the SWAC's Defensive Player of the Year as a senior at Jackson State. 112 tackles, 59 solo tackles, 2 sacks, 5 forced fumbles, 2 fumble recoveries, and had a touchdown on one of them. He was an all-SWAC honoree in 2021 after leading the conference with 109 tackles. At Jackson State, he dominated. He was a really good player. Obviously, that's not one of the higher-end schools, so that is one of the issues. But, Aubrey Miller is an interesting subject, and I actually have him to make the 53-man roster. I think he just has all sorts of talent to him, and in the right hands, you can kind of mold him into a decent player. I think with the Vic Fangio system, he kind of matches it perfectly, where you have a linebacker that is pretty speedy, that can move around the field really quickly and diagnose things. So I think just turning him into a raw talent, he could develop into a okay player. We'll see. Maybe he has some, I don't know, whatever it is, but I do see him as being a backup. I think he's going to make the 53-man roster. I would be surprised if he didn't. We'll see. But I think he just has so much raw talent coming in. That's why he was one of the most sought-after undrafted free agents coming into this season. Next one is Malik Reed. And Malik Reed actually played for Vic Fangio way back in the day. So Malik Reed played for Vic Fangio back when he was with the Broncos. He actually played with Bradley Chubb as well. So that's probably why we picked him up. Kind of knows the system. He definitely knows what Vic Fangio wants to do, and going to be a good rotational player. I think when he played for Vic Fangio, he was at his best. It's probably the best season that he had in his career. He's definitely going to be a decent backup for us. Definitely take Bradley Chubb or Jaelen Phillips. He'll take one of their places as switching out as the rotational player. He's had 16 sacks in his career, 6 passes defended. He's done a lot of those during the Broncos' tenure with Vic Fangio, but just a really solid player. Not anything to write home about, but just a really solid player. He can be really good. And I think when he was on the Broncos, he was an actual starter, or I believe because Von Miller went down. So when he was on the Broncos, when Von Miller went down, he was the actual starter. So now it's going to be better for him to come in as the rotational player that fills in for Jaelen Phillips and Bradley Chubb, throughout the game to give them a little bit of rest. The next one is going to be our newly minted middle linebacker, and that is Andrew Van Ginkel. I thought it was really cool to see Andrew Van Ginkel transition to inside linebacker because I think he makes a lot of plays around the field. He's very versatile. another utility belt type of guy, and I think he's actually going to thrive in that inside linebacker role. We'll see what happens coming into this year, but obviously he can play both, so I think he's going to be. I think he transitioned to middle linebacker, but depending on what happens, he will line up on the outside linebacker position as well when he comes in. He's had interceptions, he's had 11 sacks, he's had 13 passes defended, 4 forced fumbles in his career, blocked punts. He's done basically everything. Honestly, at one point, when you needed a special play to happen for the past couple of years, Andrew Van Ginkel kind of just does that. He just has those explosive plays every once in a while. And I think he was one of the staples of this team. The Van Ginks is just somebody that you've been rooting for since he got on the team. He's just one of those guys that gives 100% motor every single time he's on the field, and it's just awesome to watch him play because, again, that motor leads to some crazy awesome plays like block punts or fumbles or sacks that he's gotten when we needed it. Just a really cool player to watch. And I love Andrew Van Ginkel. I was like, one of the guys that I thought we needed to sign back was Van Ginkel. I thought he was going to ask for a super huge contract coming in the next year, and he didn't. He just wanted to stay with the Dolphins, and I love that because he's one of those great type of players that we need to keep on this team that gives you 100%, and it translates to everyone else. This next one, Duke Riley, I think that maybe he could be pretty decent this year with the new coaching staff. He's played in the league for a little while, and he could be one of those that he's kind of weird because if we do sign another linebacker, we'll see what happens. But if we do, I think he's one of those that could move down to being cut because he's been in the league for a little bit. You kind of know what you're getting with Duke Riley, and sometimes there's some mental mistakes with him. He's good filling in. He's going to be a backup. He's a good backup linebacker. And I just there's not really much to talk about with him. He's an okay linebacker. He makes some mental mistakes sometimes. Was a 3rd-round pick by the Falcons. And just basically plays, okay at the position. Good filling in. I think last year it was also due to the incompetence of Josh Boyer that he didn't look his greatest. But Duke Riley has done a decent job. He can tackle. He's pretty decent at tackling. He just goes for too much of the power tackles sometimes and maybe misses a little bit. But pretty decent backup. Like I said, if you sign another linebacker, he's probably getting either cut or going to the practice squad. But yeah, those are the backups. Now, let's discuss the starters. So we'll start off with the most, underwhelming that we saw last year. So we'll start off with Bradley Chubb. And Bradley Chubb really underwhelmed us last year. I think when we were at the point we were at, we were hoping to get Bradley Chubb and just dominate. Obviously at that point, I think we got him. The Browns was the first game, and Emmanuel Ogbah went down too. So I think he also didn't really know the playbook that well. And just really underwhelmed with what he was trying to do on the team. It looked, for me personally, when I was watching him, it just looked like a whole bunch of, he was just running past the defender and falling down. I'll be real with you. I like Bradley Chubb. I thought it was a great trade. It looked like he was just, all he was doing was running and falling down, running and falling down. He just didn't really do much of anything last year. And I really expected a lot more. But also, you're signing, well, I mean, you can't even say that, but you're signing midway through the season. You need to know the playbook. You didn't really know the playbook, so you're kind of just sending him out there. But I also think that it didn't look like he gave, 100%. I don't want to judge anybody, but a lot of plays, it just looked like he was just running and falling down, running and falling down. He would run around the defender, fall down. And it didn't really look like he was trying to do very much. He's a powerful guy. I didn't really see too many power rushes. Maybe I'm wrong, but for me, it just looked like a whole bunch of just distraction versus actually trying to get at the quarterback. When you watch Jaelen Phillips, it's completely different. You see that effort every single play. So, me personally, back with his old coach, back with his old type of style, I think Bradley Chubb is really going to surprise everybody coming this year. I think he's going to compete with Jaelen Phillips. Me personally, I believe that it's going to be a takeover, just like the Giants did that one year, and just like a couple of the teams where they have those 2 pass rushers, like the Colts, where you just have 2 guys just competing with each other to get sack totals. And I think, of course, he's going to help from having Emmanuel Ogbah back and also having his old system back, where he's going to be able to get one-on-ones and win. We'll go the other outside linebacker, Jaelen Phillips, man. And I think everybody that's a Dolphins fan loves Jaelen Phillips. And he's one of my favorite players on this team. I think he was just an awesome pickup when we got him out of the U. And yeah, Jaelen Phillips, one of the best players that we have on this team. And I do believe that this year, Jaelen Phillips is going to have a breakout season. I think it's going to be, I'm recording it right now, I'm saying 15 sacks at least. 15 sacks this year at least. I'm calling it right now. I think it's going to be an incredible season. And we're not talking about, obviously on top of that, the QB knockdowns that we're going to have. I think it's going to be an amazing season for him. And I think he's going to hit at least 15. He definitely is. The guy, he's going to be one of the best pass rushers in the league. I mean, if you just watch him, even if you watch, the superstars and him in the conversation, I mean, the guy gets to the quarterback. He really does. 8 sacks in his first season, 7 last season. These are numbers for rookies that aren't really, these aren't common numbers. It takes a little while to get to that point. Jason Taylor had, I think, like 4 sacks in his first season. These are getting close to Cameron Wake type of numbers. And if anybody knows Cameron Wake here, he was a beast. So, I'm telling you, Jaelen Phillips, I think, is going to have an incredible year. And it's going to translate to him completely getting over that hump, and he's going to do this for a long time. I think this long period of having Jaelen Phillips, this is just going to turn into something crazy for a while. I promise you guys this, and you're watching it first on this channel. You already know what I'm talking about. The next one, Jerome Baker, our inside linebacker. And I think he is probably going to benefit from having this system. I think putting him in man-on-man to try and cover different receivers and tight ends and all that is not his best trait. He did okay, but I think putting him in this zone coverage where he can now look and diagnose and do more of diagnosing versus just following, I think that's going to help him out a lot. I also think, obviously, he's not going to be a superstar linebacker. I think we've realized that what his capabilities are, but you never know. You come into this system, you could possibly turn into something better than you were before. He was just basically an average linebacker that we've had for a while, just a tackling guy. But I don't know. We'll see what happens in the season. You're getting an okay linebacker. That's what you're getting with Jerome Baker. That's his floor, his ceiling. We'll see where that is. But I think we've had him for a long enough time. This period of Jerome Baker, you just kind of see what he is. He's the average linebacker that will tackle, but will make some mistakes sometimes, can also intercept the ball. But coming with this system, it might be a little different. And we have to see what that does this year, because it could be very interesting to see where he is at the end of this next year with a little more confidence and maybe a little more of an intelligent style of defense behind him. Because you saw when he had okay defense with Brian Flores, he definitely looked a lot better. So we'll see what happens. But the last one that I want to talk about, and I think this is the one that everybody wants to see, I think David Long is going to be the key to this defense. David Long, he's got so much potential as a player, and I do believe that he is going to unlock it this year. The problem is these soft tissue injuries that he keeps having throughout his tenure, where he just gets these soft, tiny injuries that just keep him out. It's not as though he breaks a leg or whatever it is, knock on wood, but he just keeps having these injuries that take him off the field. When he's on the field, he is awesome. But when he's off the field, and it happens every single year. Every single year he has some sort of injury. So we'll see what happens. David Long, he is a stud. He is a stud. When he's on the field, he's a stud. But it's just keeping him on the field. And that is the problem. He needs to stay on the field. Because if he's on the field, we have our middle linebacker for a while. And that's what every team wants. You have your guy in David Long. But if he's not on the field, we can't do anything. So that's what they're probably trying to see with this season is, can he stay on the field and he's available to the team? If not, then we need to find something else. But it's going to be a good, how would you call it, potential superstar linebacker that we could have on this team. I mean, he's one of the keys here. If he plays and stays, we are good. We're golden, baby. But if he's injured, then we got to figure something out at middle linebacker. That might be a midseason trade. That's probably what they're seeing too, is if David Long can stay on the field or not. If he can't, then we'll make a midseason trade to get ourselves another linebacker, or we'll use one of the guys we have. You know, maybe Andrew Van Ginkel steps in if he gets injured. We'll see what happens. Those are going to be my linebackers for today. I love you guys. Hope you have a great rest of your day. Fins up, baby. Peace.